because this is the beginning of what will be Patroclus's downfall.
Yeah.
So
Bella gets to talk about Odysseus again.
yeah, I mean, Odysseus has a great moment.
Hello, and welcome to Winnow, a couple's close reading of the Iliad and the Odyssey. I'm Owen Gemmer.
I'm Isabella Gemmer. We are married and we love to talk about books together.
On this podcast, we are talking through the entirety of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, book by book. This particular episode is about book 11 of the Iliad.
Yes. My translation has titled this book Wounds, because a lot of guys get wounded.
Yeah, and it was also kind of fun because after book 10, we both had strong memories of book 10 and the night raid because that's all exciting and very famous. And then we obviously have strong memories of what happens at the end, but we both kind of going into this chapter looked at each other and was like, I kind of don't remember what happens in between book 10 and then like all of the stuff at the end. And so we both went into this kind of for the first time again. And so it was kind of exciting to like remember everything that happens, between the night raid and then what's all going to pop off at the end.
Yeah, I didn't want to admit it, but I started reading and I was like, I have no idea what's about to happen. And there's some characters that I'm not sure what their endings are. So there are some characters for me, I'm still kind of like, is he going to die or no? So that's always exciting.
Yeah. So one thing that we do every episode is we summarize in fun ways. I've been writing a limerick to summarize every chapter, and Bella has been giving herself like a creative writing constraint. Do you want to start?
Yes, I will start. So this week I have written a summary, the words of which can be no longer than 3 syllables long. So every word here should be 3 syllables or less. The sun rises. It's fighting time. The leader of the Greeks puts on his armor. Zeus makes it rain blood. The leader of the Greeks kills Baenor and Oileus and Islus and Antiphus. He strips their armor. Zeus sends Hector a message saying that when the leader of the Greeks is wounded, Hector will be given the strength to kill until he reaches the Greek ships. Coon wounds the leader of the Greeks with a spear, and he is taken back to the ships. Hector charges, and he kills many. Son of Laertes and master of the war cry charge together. The master of the war cry strikes Hector's helmet, but does not wound him. Paris shoots the master of the war cry in the foot. He is taken back to the ships. Son of Laertes is surrounded by Trojans. He stabs Socus in the back. Ajax and brother of the leader of the Greeks go to help son of Laertes. Paris shoots Machaon with an arrow. Nestor takes him back to the ships. Ajax holds his ground. Achilles sees Nestor returning with wounded Machaon and gets Patroclus to go check on who the wounded man is. Patroclus goes and confirms it is Machaon. Nestor tells Patroclus a long story from his youth and asks him to put on Achilles' armor and march into battle if he can't persuade Achilles to fight. On his way back to Achilles' tent, Patroclus helps a wounded fighter tend to his wound.
Excellent. I think next week you should just try 2 syllables because I think the vast majority of your words were also 2 syllables or fewer. There were a few names that were longer, but you've been good at being creative with the names. And so I think you could do 2 syllables or fewer as well.
We'll see. I want to switch it up. I might, I was thinking about trying to do, for some of these books where, like this book, like the plot wasn't extremely important because it's just really good descriptions of war. So it's good to mention, like, if someone was to die, like, I get that in there somehow.
If one of the main people would die, there was a lot of people who died that you didn't mention.
No, okay, yeah. A lot of people do die, but if one of our main characters was to die, we got to mention that. But for these kinds of books that are more like war vibes, I was going to try to do maybe something more like creative writing where I like try to write like, what does this look like from X character's perspective?
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
you know, like this experience, what is it like to look at it from this
yeah.
point of view or that point of view? And so I think I'm going to try some of that next.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I've done another limerick. I'm very eager to see if you hate my 1-3-5 rhyme, because I went full Emily Dickinson with some slant rhymes here. Had some fun with it. The battle resumes with Agamemnon. The fighting and killing go on and on. There's so much blood in the dirt. A bunch of Greek heroes are hurt. And Nestor foretells the denouement.
The denouement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a French word that I think, well, Rhyme Zone says it rhymes with Agamemnon. I was on rhymezone.com and I put in non as the ending and denouement was on there. I was like, that's a great word. I should try and fit that in.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. I like it.
Yeah. So we decided, well, do you want to talk about how we're going to frame this?
Well, yeah. So we realized as we started reading this book that it is completely full of Homeric similes.
Probably the most per, like the ratio of similes to total lines is probably the highest so far.
Yeah, the highest so far, for sure. So we thought that we would, instead of talking maybe chronologically about what happens, we've chosen some Homeric similes. We even have a good taunt in there that we're going to go through and use that as our way of talking about the book.
We kind of chose our favorites, just like really epic descriptions. Again, this is one of the books where like plot-wise, it's pretty straightforward. Like people fight, people get injured, whatever. But like Homer really shines in his descriptions. And I think different translators then are able to show off their different translation styles through that because there's different ways that all of these seem epic in different ways.
Yeah. And so we should also just be transparent about, so a Homeric simile, it's a simile like many similes you've probably heard before. It's a comparison between two things that uses like or as. Although the Greek words...
Hos. It's usually, if you see a line that begins with hos, then it's like, oh, I got a simile coming.
Which is usually translated as like as.
Yeah, oftentimes translators use the sort of pair of like as blank, so blank.
Yeah.
As like as is the first half and then so indicates the beginning of the second half.
So, the reason that it's Homeric and different than a regular simile that you might come across in a contemporary piece of literature is that it goes on a while. So it's more complex than just, let me think of something simple. She was as fragile as a leaf. It's very simple. It's just like...
His groan was as loud as thunder. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just very one note. After you get exposed to the beauty of Homeric similes and how they can go on and how they like
can be complex.
They can be very complicated. And you have to really sit and think about like, okay, what exactly is he trying to compare? And what is he trying in the comparison? What is he trying to bring out of that present moment? When I read similes in contemporary literature, I find that I can get frustrated because they can be obvious and they can be cliche almost. And I just really enjoy like using similes to go to the next level of describing something.
Right. Yeah. Like in the example you used, she was as fragile as a leaf. Like that's not that different from just saying she was fragile. The like as a leaf part doesn't really add that much to my understanding of the description. Like I get the understanding from the first half and I don't really need the second half.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in Homeric similes, like they usually are more additive where it's like, oh, I have this new take on what's happening that I couldn't have gotten otherwise.
I think that metaphor and simile, when they're done properly, they're so great because when you're trying to describe something and you're trying to bring out like something very specific about what you want the reader to get out of a description, sometimes the best way to describe that thing is to get at it indirectly.
Yeah.
Which is what a simile does. It's just kind of a weird thing about language that sometimes if you want to describe something really well, you actually just describe something else and say that they're similar.
Yeah.
Like that's just crazy.
I actually, as an English teacher, when I have students who are kind of like disgruntled with like, oh, why do we talk about similes so much? It's all blah, blah, blah. The thing that I sometimes do to prove why it's valuable to think about similes is I just ask them, all right, think about the time in your life when you have experienced the most physical pain. You broke your leg, you, I don't know, like fell on a rock and gashed open your thigh or something like that. Okay, think about that. And then it's like, all right, describe that pain to me. I've never had that experience happen to me before. Describe what it felt like. And it's basically impossible for them to describe it without using some sort of figurative language. It felt like, you know, I was struck by lightning, or it felt like there was electricity running through, or, you know, like when we talk about our most extreme feelings, either negative or positive, we must in some ways resort to figurative language, because there is no way to share that. Like, right, like you've never broken your wrist, I have. And so if I want to tell you what that feels like, I have to use some sort of metaphorical comparison or simile to describe the pain that I was feeling that you can't have.
Except I did break my wrist.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
What?
When I was in kindergarten.
Was it monkey bars?
No. I was just walking backwards and I fell back and caught myself in my arm and it broke.
I don't think I knew this.
We learn new things every day about one another.
Wow.
It's the glory of marriage. I definitely told you. But anyways.
How many times did I break my wrist?
You broke your wrist 3 times.
Yes. Do you remember?
I can understand that for someone who's broken their wrist 3 times and someone else tells you they've only broken their wrist once.
And it was in kindergarten.
I can see how you decided that wasn't real for you.
My pain is worse than your pain.
Yeah, I can see how you were like, yeah.
I have suffered more than you.
Yeah. She's never broken her wrist. We need to get down to business.
All right. So we're going to take turns sharing some of our favorite moments of description from this book, and I'm up first because mine comes earliest. We begin the fighting with Agamemnon going on a rampage, and this is somewhat unique because we have criticized Agamemnon for being kind of useless and just kind of being a little bit of a wimp coward.
Yeah.
But here he goes pretty hard, and he is killing a lot of Trojans.
This book opens. I think it has kind of like Agamemnon's best opening. He puts on like all this elaborate armor and he's really into the fighting in this book.
Yes. So there's a moment where he kills 2 of Priam's sons at the same time. And then there is an interesting simile about sort of the whole situation.
I'm going to read it in the Wilson translation. Just as a lion with his strong teeth seizes the little babies of a nimble deer when he has found their nest and easily rips them apart and takes away their life. And even if the mother is nearby, she cannot do them any good at all. Terrible trembling seizes hold of her. She dashes through the forest and thick trees, sweating and scampering to get away, the strong, fierce lion chasing close behind. So nobody could save the Trojans' lives. Their helpers also fled before the Greeks.
Yeah, so what I really like about this simile, oftentimes there are lots of comparisons of sort of warrior to predator animal chasing after and killing prey animal. And that's how this starts, right? Like as a lion sort of pounces on 2 baby deers, like that part is pretty standard. I do think it's interesting, right? Like these are 2 of Priam's sons and it's like 2 baby deers, but then it's their mother watching on, and the simile continues and it becomes more complex. And I like that there's multiple layers to this. So it's like Agamemnon is the lion killing these 2 people who are the baby deer, and also their mom watches on. So that could be Priam back at the walls, but also just the rest of the army. Yeah. And in the simile, right, the deer is sort of like quaking with fear and doesn't come to intervene to save her children's life. In that same way, all of the other warriors who were there with these 2 fled in fear. Nobody came in to help. And so there's this more complex relationship between both sort of like the hunter and the hunted, but then also the bystanders who are watching on and maybe should help, right? Like, shouldn't Mother Deer go help her children? But the attack is so vicious and so over the top that even the helpers, the ones who should be protecting the others, are afraid and are sort of unable to come to the assistance of the sort of the victims.
It also kind of emphasizes the helplessness that those watching on probably feel, because in the simile, like, what is a deer supposed to do to fight back towards a lion? Right. Like, obviously they could do something, but it feels such that like Agamemnon is being so aggressive that they literally can't do anything. The only thing they can do is turn and run.
Yeah.
And the strong, fierce lion chasing close behind. Like, they can run, and Agamemnon will even continue to chase them.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think this simile also sets up what comes very closely after, where the mother deer also, I think, could be read as Hector, because there's this interesting moment where Zeus sort of sends Iris with a message to Hector and tells Hector, hey, as long as Agamemnon is out there raging, you shouldn't go fight. You should stay back. And then once Agamemnon is injured, then you can join the fight. And so Zeus basically explicitly tells Hector, you should just watch your comrades die and not do anything. And Hector obeys. And so in this case, like, Zeus is telling Hector to be like that mother deer. Like, hey, this lion's out there going crazy. Like, don't go in there. You're going to get hurt. Stay back. Let other people get hurt. And then when one of them is able to injure Agamemnon, then you can go in, which is really interesting because Hector hasn't ever behaved that way before. And yet now he's getting a command from Zeus to basically be a coward. It segues pretty well from that moment where Zeus tells Hector, like, hey, wait till Agamemnon's injured, and then you can sort of join the fray. And you have a simile from when Agamemnon is injured.
I do. I thought that this was quite interesting. Well, first he kills one brother, and then he's like trying to strip the armor off of him. Agamemnon does a lot of stripping the armor, more so than anyone else does in this book. And yeah, so he's stripping this one guy's armor, and that guy, the dead guy's brother, Kun.
I think it's Koan.
Koan?
Mine at least has an umlaut over the second O.
Okay, that makes sense. So Koan sees his dead brother, he sees Agamemnon stripping his armor, and hurls his spear at him and gets him on the arm beneath the elbow, so the forearm. And Agamemnon keeps fighting. He ends up cutting off Koan's head, and then it's like he's fine for a while, and then he's not fine all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I'll read. But when the wound dried up after the blood stopped flowing, Agamemnon, the son of Atreus, was pierced by pain, as when a piercing, cruel arrow strikes a woman in the agony of labor, shot by the goddesses of labor pangs, the Elathrias, who are Hera's daughters, in charge of cruel birth pangs. Even so sharp pains pierced Agamemnon. And then it describes how he jumps up, gets on a chariot, and goes back to the ships.
Yeah. I was really struck by this when I read it too. It's such an intense simile, and this one is more straightforward. It is just kind of a one-to-one, but it's such a wild one-to-one.
I found it very interesting because it really stands out from all of the Homeric similes in this book that are mostly about either forces of nature or wild animals. This is the one that's like kind of weird because it's comparing Agamemnon's pain to a woman's pain.
And the pain from war to the pain from birth. And so there's the contrast of like pain that brings death versus pain that brings life.
Yes. I think it's in here to do a thing that I think Homer was trying to do, which was to make people of different demographics, people who didn't have similar experiences, realize that they could have similar experiences. So in this Homeric simile, I think what he's trying to say is that like, is to make, essentially, if any man is listening to this, to point out that you're not the only people who experience pain, essentially. Women also experience pain, and it's like this. And so I think we see this sometimes where Homeric similes are an attempt to bring together different people's experiences and sort of unite them.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a good example of that.
Yeah. I did find also when you were rereading it, I didn't catch this the first time, but the simile is slightly more complex given their kind of like mythology and religious beliefs, because it actually doesn't compare the pain directly to childbirth pains, but directly to being pierced by the arrow from these daughters of Hera who shoot arrows. And so it seems like they understand a woman having birth pains as being shot by an arrow by one of these people, and that causes the pain. So there's this weird intermediary that makes the simile actually more similar because there is an aggressor. There is somebody attacking and shooting an arrow in both scenarios. And obviously, we don't believe that a woman's birth pains are from little goddesses shooting arrows at her in birth. But that little quirk of their understanding of what birth pains were adds actually even more connection. Well, speaking of archers, we do have another moment of an archer who has been an archer before, Paris, our friend.
Yes.
And he is able in the fighting to shoot Diomedes in the foot. And Diomedes' response, it is not an epic simile or a Homeric simile properly, but it is so good that I would feel awful if we went the whole podcast without talking about it.
Yeah.
There are some comparisons in it. And so I think to sort of justify the literary connection here, oftentimes you can have interesting comparisons between events that aren't similes.
Well, there's actually kind of like there's a small simile in the middle of this taunt that he's about to give.
Yeah.
And so I think it works.
Yeah.
It's just an epic description of
Diomedes taunting Paris. Who Paris is vaunting, right? Like Paris shoots Diomedes in the foot, and then Paris has a little like, haha, I've gotten you. And then Diomedes just snaps right back at him. Go ahead and read it.
You good-for-nothing archer, sleazy flirt, so rude, so cocky in your silly hairstyle. If you tried fighting with me face to face, your bow and your swift arrows would be useless. You brag like this because you grazed my foot. I barely noticed it, as if a woman or foolish child had slapped me. Blows that come from nobodies and cowards do not hurt. Even a scratch from me cuts sharp and deep, and instantly my enemy is dead. His grieving widow's fingers tear her cheeks. His children have no father now. His blood reddens the earth. He rots, and round his body more birds than women gather.
I don't know. Your voice is just too nice.
Oh, it's too nice?
Yeah, you didn't say that tauntingly enough. It's so biting. It's so good.
Sorry, I tried.
I want to read the last little bit in Chapman's translation because there's a really good rhyming couplet here.
Yeah.
The subject of it makes earth red, and air with sighs inflames, and leaves limbs more embraced with birds than with enamored dames.
Yeah.
But this idea of like there are more vultures gathering around you than women anymore because that's all you've cared about is getting women. And now, I think it's also just, it's funny in sort of a childish way where he's like, he does the "'tis but a flesh wound" like Monty Python bit, but then he says like, well, if I scratched you, it would kill you. Like my scratches are so good that just a scratch would kill you. Yeah. You've scratched me and I don't feel anything.
Well, it's actually I think it's so funny because Diomedes says all this stuff. And then immediately after he says this stuff, he's like kind of turns to Odysseus. He's like, actually, I think I need to go back to the ships.
Yeah.
I can't keep fighting.
Yeah,
so he has been wounded enough to not continue fighting.
Because will you read earlier the description of the actual wound before Paris does his taunt?
Yeah. It hit the top of his right foot, drove through it, and nailed it to the earth.
Yeah, like that's crazy. Like that's not a scratch. That's an arrow straight through your foot.
Yeah. Odysseus comes up and like has to pull the arrow out so that he can like walk again. Yeah, then pain shot through his body. He climbed in the chariot and ordered the driver back towards the hollow ships. Yeah. Because he was in agony.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's actually quite hurt, but he manages in the moments before like the pain of something like sets in, he's like, oh, 'tis but a flesh wound.
Yeah. This one also jumps out because it's yet another moment of Paris sort of getting just absolutely lambasted for being, not a warrior and just kind of what does the Wilson translation use?
You good-for-nothing archer, sleazy flirt.
Yeah.
So rude, so cocky in your silly hairstyle.
Yeah. Mine has, you slick-haired lover, you that hunt and fleer at wenches so.
Wenches?
Yes. So we did look this up in the Greek.
It's time for Greek time.
The particular word that stood out to us and that we were curious about is this sleazy flirt in the Wilson or You who hunt and fleer at wenches so. And I found it in the Greek. The word is another Greek compound word, parthenopipa. So there's two parts of this. I'm actually going to start with the second half, the opipa, which is from this longer Greek verb, opipteuo, which itself is related to op, that root that means to look or to see. But it's this kind of like redoubled. And so it's not just look once, it's kind of more like look around at, or sort of, like a more sustained or sort of constant sort of looking at. So who
like leering.
Yeah, leers at or constantly sort of looks at. And then the first half of it, the partheno, you might recognize like, hey, isn't in Athens there this building called the Parthenon? Yes, indeed, they are connected because the Parthenon is a temple to Athena, and Athena is often referred to as Parthenos because Parthenos means virgin or maiden, and Athena was sort of recognized as the virgin goddess. And so
one of them,
yeah. But basically Parthenos is a nickname for Athena. And so Parthenopipo is he who sort of leers at or looks at virgins or maidens or young women, depending on how you interpret that part of it. But so I think it's a great word that I think, captures Paris's whole deal. It also reminds me a lot of Don Giovanni and the Don Juan, Don John character who's in a lot of different myths. But that idea of the sort of like seducer who thinks he's all that, but in the end is proven to not be all that. Our final Homeric simile of this section.
So
Bella gets to talk about Odysseus again.
Yeah, I mean, Odysseus has a great moment. So Odysseus basically he and Diomedes ride in on a chariot. Diomedes gets shot in the foot, as we've discussed. He has to go back to the ships. Then Odysseus is left alone. What will he do? It's like total, like he's like surrounded by the Trojans, like backs against the wall. What's he gonna do? So this was kind of long.
And there's many layers to it, so pay attention.
This one has many layers. With this, he led the way, and godlike Ajax followed. They found Odysseus, whom Zeus had favored, pressed hard by Trojans who surrounded him. As spotted jackals on the mountainside surround a wounded stag, at whom a hunter aims with an arrow from his string and strikes. The stag sprints off, escapes the man, and while his blood runs warm, his long, light legs keep running. But when the arrow overpowers him, the wild flesh-eating jackals on the mountain devour him in the shadows of the grove. Then some god sends a lion, who is starving. The jackals scatter, and the lion eats. So did the valiant Trojans cluster round clever, ingenious Odysseus. But he fought back, attacked them with his spear, and saved himself from death. Ajax approached, holding his towering shield, and stood beside him. The Trojans ran away in all directions.
Yeah. So there's so much going on in here. I think the most literal level is interesting because Odysseus is a wounded stag here. Odysseus is the victim in this simile, which is very rare. Again, yeah, you're right. He is often the boar, or because he's killing so many people, some other predator. But now he is prey because he has been wounded and is being, surrounded by these jackal Trojans.
He's like, it's emphasizes like the dire nature of the situation. Like he is about to get eaten by flesh-eating jackals. But the interesting part is when the lion gets introduced.
Right.
Some god sends a lion who is starving. It's so interesting. So a lion who is very hungry shows up, a greater predator than jackals, right? Which makes the jackals scatter, and the lion eats, which is very interesting because I think Ajax approaching is the lion approaching, and the Trojans ran away in all directions. So the Trojans are the jackals that scatter because Ajax is this lion who is approaching.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, and so the question is the lion eating the stag, Odysseus, or is the lion eating some of the jackals? How did you read it the first time?
I guess I had thought like, I don't know actually. Now you bring up it. I had just kind of assumed that maybe the lion was there to like eat the prey. Which,
right. That's on the natural level. That's what we would expect. The lion would chase off the jackals and then eat the wounded deer, because why would he chase after jackals when he has a wounded deer right there? So, right, on the level of the natural world, that's what we would expect. But in fiction, that isn't what we would expect. We would expect, and what happens is that Ajax, starts killing Trojans, not Odysseus. Like, that would be ridiculous for Ajax to come in and, prison shiv Odysseus and while he's down.
Yeah, because the way that this like paragraph progresses, it is kind of like like, who's the lion? Like, because the idea of a lion, another character coming in.
Our cat just walked by outside the window. The lion back from his hunt.
Oh yes, he is truly a lion. You've got Odysseus backs against the wall, like things look so bad. But then this lion is introduced, and you're like, wait, so who's the lion, and what's the lion about to do? And then it becomes clear that it's Ajax. So, like, I can see that it creates this, like, it adds even more tension to the moment of like, wait, who's the lion? What's the lion about to do?
Yeah, and so I think the simile breaks because it later goes on. Ajax, leaping at the Trojans, killed a bastard son of Priam and does this, right? And so what we would expect to happen in nature doesn't happen in the story. So obviously there's more fighting and there's more similes, but these are some of the ones we wanted to highlight because the book is not over. And I will say, as I was recording the audiobook for this one and it kept going, I was like, all right, we're finally getting to the end. And then Nestor pulls another Nestor. So as some warriors are heading back, Achilles has been watching from his ships and he sees another wounded warrior coming in and he tells Patroclus, like, hey, go find out who that is. I can't tell. And then Nestor is the one bringing this wounded warrior in. And so Patroclus and Nestor have this conversation and Nestor turns it into a very long lecture that's like 5 pages long.
I want to point out just a small little comparison that's made before we get to everything that Nestor says. So when Achilles is looking out on the battlefield, Achilles calls out to Patroclus, his friend, who came out of the tent like Ares, and that was the beginning of his ruin. I just thought that was a very interesting couple of words, because this is the beginning of what will be Patroclus's downfall.
Yeah. I love this one, the Chapman, again, it's not super literal, but I loved the turn of phrase he used. He put it in parentheticals, the first spring of his decay.
Whoa, that's wild.
It's really good. And this is what I meant. So this is the moment I was talking about in my limerick, with the last line being, and Nestor foretells the denouement, because this moment, right, the narrator steps in and says, like, hey, this is the beginning of the end for Patroclus. What we're getting now is going to come back sort of in the finale, in the denouement, as everything kind of wraps up.
And yeah, so Nestor gives, it's sort of just like how Phoenix a couple books ago gave a very long, seemingly nonsensical story. Nestor does the same thing.
Except it's even longer.
Yeah, it actually is.
Even more, I find annoying because it's self-aggrandizing. At least Phoenix's was like this other myth that, like, the hero Meleager, I'm going to tell you this story. But but Nestor's like, I got a story from when I was a kid and I did some great things.
Yeah, Nestor like opens up. He's mentioned a few times, but he really goes for it this time, where he starts to go, oh, back when I was young, I could have done it because I did all these other great things.
Yeah.
And yeah, this time he just keeps going, and he talks about some wars that happened when he was younger. Basically, I think that the thing to take away from this story is essentially that when he was younger, Neleus told me I must not fight and hid my horses because he believed I was not ready yet to fight in war. I marched on foot, and even so I fought better than any of the men with horses. The battle went this way because Athena had made it so. So essentially, he's telling Patroclus, someone told me not to fight, and I fought anyways. And it turned out okay for me.
Yeah.
Is essentially what he's trying to say to Patroclus.
And then he kind of gives this, like, lecture like Achilles is really going to regret this. We're going to win the war, or like we're either going to win and he's not going to be a part of it, or we're all going to die and he's going to feel really guilty because he could have helped us.
Yeah. He talks about, again, he's talking about himself. All the people gave thanks. The god they glorified the most was Zeus. The man they glorified was Nestor. That was
crazy.
The way I was among my people. That was the way I was among my people, if I remember rightly how it was. So
Right.
like, he's like, I'm old. Maybe my memories doesn't serve me anymore.
But Achilles, right? Achilles will enjoy his skill all by himself. He will regret it later and weep for what has happened.
Yeah. He's like, if Achilles doesn't fight now, he'll miss out on his chance.
He won't get to be the hero that I was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then he transitions into reminding Patroclus. He was like, I was there before, we took you and Achilles, before you and Achilles joined the fight. And he said, I was there when your father gave you advice. And the advice, apparently, that Patroclus' father gave him was to remind him that although Achilles is stronger, Patroclus is older than him. You must advise him, counsel him, direct him. It will be better if he yields to you. So essentially, apparently, he was given this advice that he should follow through on, which is that Achilles should listen to his counsel. And then he goes even one step farther.
Yeah.
Real Polonius behavior in my eyes. I am starting to read Nestor and Polonius as like the same character. It is Nestor's idea that he spells out very plainly to Patroclus. If his heart holds back because of some divine intention, go forth yourself and let the Myrmidons march with you. Be a light to help the Greeks, and let him give you his own splendid armor. The Trojans may believe that you are him, Achilles, and keep away from battle. And meanwhile, the weary sons of Greece can catch their breath.
Astute readers will know this is exactly what happens. Eventually, it doesn't happen for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was, again, as we were saying, we didn't remember what happened in this book. And I was actually shocked that this was planted so early. I kind of remembered it in my head, obviously mistakenly, as being a more kind of spur of the moment decision, like, oh, let's try this. But I like the fact that Nestor kind of proposes this idea in book 11 prior, like this is before, we're not even halfway through the book yet.
Yeah.
And this idea has already been sort of like set in motion in some ways, because then it says like, so Nestor spoke and persuaded the heart in Patroclus or something like that.
Stirred up the pride and courage in his heart. And then I think, so then the tail end of the book ends with, as Patroclus is going back to Achilles' tent, he bumps into a wounded fighter.
Essentially, Eurypylus tells him, we have two doctors. One of them was the person who just got injured, Machaon, who is the one Nestor was bringing in. And the other one is out on the field fighting, like actually like fighting in that. And so we have no doctors. But you, Patroclus, you have learned medicine skills from Achilles because Achilles learned them from Chiron.
Yes.
Chiron is the great centaur. So help me take care of my wound.
Yeah. And so he does. And I read this tale ending as kind of like a confirmation that Patroclus does feel extremely sympathetic for the Greeks.
Yes.
And he doesn't want to see all of these guys get wounded and die. And so it is like this confirmation of like, it's not going to maybe happen yet for some reason, but Patroclus will do what Nestor suggests.
Yeah. In this case, we don't have a simile. We have a metaphor. Like, will you read the last couple lines? Because I think these lines are directly metaphorical.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he washed away the black blood from the wound using warm water, and between his hands he rubbed a painkiller, a bitter root, and smeared it on the leg. It stopped the pain. The wound dried up, and no more blood flowed out.
Yeah. So this idea that he stops the bleeding, like the Greek army is bleeding right now. Like there's a bunch of people wounded, and they're again on the sort of outs of this battle, and Patroclus will be the one to staunch that in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So to summarize and close out, essentially, a lot of the Greeks are wounded. a lot of our main guys. Agamemnon, Diomedes, Odysseus also gets wounded. We didn't really emphasize that.
Macon, the doctor.
The doctor, even the doctor's down. And that's when you know it's really bad. It's looking bad.
Yeah. But the other interesting thing, it seems like people bounce back from injuries pretty quickly. Because remember, Menelaus had been shot in the groin and he seems fine.
He's fine now.
Has had no adverse side effects from that, even though that was like 2 days ago. So it seems like these warriors can get injured and just bounce right back from it. It does one of those things that I think, like, it's kind of the definition of plot armor in a way, where like somebody gets injured and so they're taken out of the battle, but then there's no adverse side effects beyond that. It happens all the time in TV shows and things like that, which is frustrating. But like you want, like, if somebody's going to get injured, for there to be like really big ramifications from that.
We have to remember that Zeus told Hector that he would give Hector the strength to fight all the way to the Greek ships. So we'll have to see in the next book. If I'm not 100% sure what's got to happen in the next book. Like, plot-wise, I'm not exactly sure what happens. But I guess we'll see if Zeus's words ring true and if Hector makes it to the Greek ships.
Yes, and if you want to find out, I am again recording an audiobook of Samuel Butler's translation of the Iliad, so I'll have book 12 ready for you. And you can listen along or read along in your own copy. And we'll see you back here next week for our discussion of book 12.
Yep. Until then, happy reading.
Happy reading.